And the intro is as such. Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Ali once again, episode 83, and we'll jump right into it. We have someone I've been looking to talk to for a while, for a decent while, not a very long while because he hasn't been on the scene for ages. But ever since he's been on, I've been pretty interested. We have Kazi Akber on the show from the great Kya Kahega Kazi show. What a great name to have. That आपके show के नाम के अंदर ना वो आराम से fit हो गया. Kya Kahega Kazi is a statement that no one says Kya Kahega Ali. They're like, oh, the fuck. But guys, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, I'm great. Thank you for having me. And the name actually came about as a joke.
Okay.
लोग ये मैं ऐसे टेढ़ा ही रखूंगा, ठीक है ना? Just
ठीक है.
सही, बस ये ऐसे. हाँ. तो मैं ये बोल रहा था, I'm just a tortured artist. तो मैं ये बोल रहा था.
It sounds like you're trying to land the space shuttle, but वो जो होता है ना, एक कान के situation room की आवाज आती रहे और एक कान में astronaut सुनते रहो.
नहीं वही ना, there's supposed to be noise cancelling or something, but when I do this, now I feel like you can't hear me.
Oh, acha, it's like two noise cancelling.
It's all the noise cancelling. It's thought cancelling.
Right.
तो they would often like कोई भी बात चल रही होती थी, you know, whatever conversation. There's a conversation about denim, right? I don't know shit about denim, right? But I would want to like speak on it. Like I'd want to not saying that I would have the right arguments or that I would make the best arguments, but I would want to have a conversation about it. Like if someone's saying Levi's is the best denim company in the world, I'm not saying that's not true, right? But you need to quantify it, right? So I'd always, if someone's like, yo dude, Levi's the best, I'd be like, why? You know? But, and say एक बार चलता है, दो बार चलता है, but that was just a theme. So then they just be like, fucking Kya Kahega Kazi. I just wanna, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
If you tell me, Beats by Dre are the best headphones, I'm not disagreeing with you, right? Did I say that you're wrong?
Yeah.
But you have to tell me that you need to quantify it, na? ये सही हो गया.
Yeah, because you can't keep holding that for the hour we're going to be here. That makes sense. Before we dive into a bit of your history, नाम की तुमने बात शुरू कर दी है. This was under a different name, this podcast effort. There's another channel by the name of Kacheri. Is that you? Or या कोई तुम्हारी videos लगा रहा है?
नहीं, that's me, but that's in Sindhi. That's in Sindhi. That's a separate thing. Yeah.
Is that ongoing? Or is that on hold for now?
Yeah, anyway, we put a stop. No, we didn't put a stop to it, but we've kind of put it on the back burner.
Achha.
We didn't, because initially हमें ये लगा था कि it'll be like a situation where we just come together and we just, talk shit every week or whatever, right? But what ends up happening with that is you actually need more people for that kind of podcast. You don't just need two people, because if it's just two people, right, you need a third or a fourth, you need at least three people. You need at least a third person who's feeding you information, right? अच्छा आज कराची में ये हुआ, अच्छा आज हैदराबाद में ये हुआ, सखर में ये हुआ, लाड़ी में ये हुआ, इस्लामाबाद, लाहौर, whatever, right? So if it's just two people sitting there talking shit with each other, eventually it starts becoming.
So it was not like a
kind of
format kind of thing. It was like a consistent.
That one wasn't. No, that one wasn't. That one wasn't.
Chalo, remind me to come to that at some point later. But what I want to start with here was that I haven't. Usually, what I do is I make an agenda. I make an agenda for these sort of interview sort of episodes, and उसपे ना I put in all the points, etc., etc. But for some reason, I wanted this to be a bit more open-ended. This sort of conversation. I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's just something I'm trying. I still have a few things that I hope not to forget. इसलिए मैंने लिखा हुआ है.
Inshallah, yeah.
हाँ. But what I was interested in is, honestly speaking, no offense to anybody else, but ever since your show has started to come on the air, I've been doing this for a little while now.
Mashallah.
And beach mein, people came, people went, all of that. And जब से COVID हुआ है, तो podcasts have become a thing. There was a YouTube push, and बाहर जाना जब risky हो गया, तो लोगों ने कहा घर भी बैठ के क्या होगा, अच्छा जी podcast कर लेते हैं. तो बहुत से लोगों ने शुरू किया. Many are already gone. But honestly speaking, your show was the first show that I saw after like people like Kya Kahega How to Pakistan wala show hai, which inspired me to start. But your show was the first show that I saw. Okay, yeah, this seems like something I would generally be interested in as far as the medium goes. Just the nature, not even just the subjects, but just the vibe. It seemed like you were not doing this as just a thing to do, that you were genuinely interested in the format and the medium. So what I want to understand now is, I don't know you before this, beyond this, but I'm hoping, as much as you are comfortable with doing, I'm hoping to change a bit of that. So I wanted to find out about
All right.
your story, because I don't know anything about you. Like, how did you grow up and become the person who ended up starting the Kya Kahega Kazi podcast? I went through your the broadcast or broadcast जो थोड़े दिन पहले तुमने interview किया था with the guys, the boys.
The broadcast, yeah.
Broadcast. Yeah, I went through it, but उसमें we had already talked कि तुम इस show पे आओगे and we'll talk to you about this. So I didn't go through all of it because I didn't want too much of my questions to be informed by what you said there.
Sure.
But
Sure.
what I did catch was a bit was okay, you were working a 9 to 5, and the podcast was a visible goal at the end of that 9 to 5 कि 3-4 साल में नौकरी करूंगा और उसके बाद मैं podcast full time शुरू करूंगा, something to that effect. But what I'm interested in is you as a person before we start talking about the podcast. So if you don't mind, would you tell me like your backstory, like where did you grow up, or where did you go to school, what did you study, that sort of stuff?
Sure, of course, yeah. तो क्या हुआ था कि एक अंधेरी रात थी, वो बिजली कट की थी, और फिर जो है 3 वुल्फ आए थे. एक सफेद वुल्फ था, 2 काले थे.
Right.
सफेद वाले के वुल्फ के मुंह में एक बंडल था. और वो मेरे मम्मी पापा के घर पे वो छोड़ गए थे.
Right.
And that was obviously my brother. That wasn't me. I was inside.
We're still trying to deal with it.
That piece of shit. नहीं, माशाल्लाह से नहीं. So I grew up in Hyderabad. I was born in Hyderabad, raised in Hyderabad till I was 16. When I was 16, I moved to Karachi. Hyderabad mein studied at County Cambridge, then City School.
Oh, nice.
Karachi mein, yeah. Karachi mein City School. Yeah, dude, through and through. City School, the Raksha campus in Karachi. Then Nixa.
Okay.
Nixa ke baad Monash in Malaysia, then University of Toronto in Canada. University of Toronto in Monash mein I studied diasporic literature, post-colonial and diasporic literature. ये Canada में University of Toronto में I studied philosophy and writing. Right, and throughout all this, the overarching theme for my life, alhamdulillah, has been that my parents have never forced me with stuff like this, like with stuff like interests, right? They're like, yeah, do whatever you want, right? Just be like, they were like, there are some principles you cannot violate. I'm like, for instance, he's like, for instance, you have to take responsibility, you have to take care of yourself, you can't be a piece of shit. I'm like, oh, I failed that one. But you can't, you can't be a degenerate. You don't do those things.
Right.
But other than that, like, do whatever you want. I'm like, I want to do literature. My dad's just like, all right, do that. Yeah, hey, do literature, right?
Was there, if you
There was a
don't
little bit
mind,
of,
am I asking, was there like
hmm, yeah.
a family tradition ke people were generally interested in literature vagara, or were you like doing something new for the family?
No, so there was absolute interest in literature, but it's a very pragmatic family. So people are
Right,
doctors, lawyers,
right,
or businessmen, right?
right,
And if they're businessmen, they have a history of education in business, right? So MBAs and all those
right,
things, right?
right, right.
Masters in economics and all those things. तो जब extended family को ये बताया गया कि ये करने जा रहा है, so they did raise their eyebrows. They were quite concerned. They were like, "यार ये क्या कर रहे हैं?" and so on and so
Mm.
forth. But my dad was like, "Yeah, don't sweat that. Just do what you're gonna do." Um, so well, I graduated from the university. Then I decided I wanted to come back.
Mm.
When I came back, यहाँ पे like I said in आप अभी बात कर रहे थे कि I worked a 9 to 5. I worked there for a bit. It was a good job, lots of learning experience.
What sort of job was
Um,
it?
marketing,
Marketing.
marketing,
Okay.
huh? Marketing for a newspaper. So
Right,
buying ads.
right,
Sorry, selling space. Selling
right,
space.
right.
You get to meet a lot of people, lots of higher ups. Got to meet uh, marketing executives for the Jung Group, for the Dawn Group. These are impressive people, and
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
you know how you use analogies like you stand in front of giants.
Mm.
You don't grasp that until you go and stand in front of these people, and they actually just feel bigger than you for
Yeah,
whatever reason. I'm like, dude,
yeah,
I work out. I
yeah.
can bet you 100. What's wrong with it's not the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So फिर I met them. That really expanded my mind. लेकिन उसके बाद I still ये podcast का जो मसला था. I'd been listening to Joe Rogan for 8 odd years, right? And other podcasts on and off as well. Bill Burr की podcast मैं बहुत शौक से सुनता हूँ, which is another very interesting format. Um, तो my thing was I came back, and mostly everyone here in Pakistan had become so accustomed to bite-sized information.
Mm.
Like बाकायदा हम ऐसा मुझे महसूस होता था कि we literally just sit around and we wait for someone to chew our food,
Mm.
right? And my education in post-colonial literature, yes, but then especially in philosophy, is entirely opposed to that. It's the opposite of that. My education tells me that I must critically analyze everything, literally everything, whatever my eyes see, everything,
Mm.
and that's just healthy. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
If I'm not going to do that, I'm acting in bad faith of whatever I've been given. If I've been given any amount of control over any any factors of production, किसी को मैं hire कर सकता हूँ, मैं खुद किसी के लिए कोई काम कर सकता हूँ. I have to be critical about everything,
Mm.
you know? नहीं तो how am I making these decisions based off like just bad information or information that I'm um, expecting other people to just
Provide.
sift through for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
you know?
Okay.
And then obviously I was affected by the writings of George Orwell a lot, Marx a lot, all
Okay.
this stuff, right? Um, I picked this stuff up young, so it kind of just set itself in my head. And I was
Right,
like,
right. So how
yeah.
long ago was this your return from Canada?
अब उसको 3 साल हो गए.
3 साल हो गए. Okay.
हाँ.
Right.
So
And then
roundabout, like I came back, started the work,
right.
and then
And
yeah.
you'd been listening. When did you start getting interested in podcasts? As soon as you left Pakistan, या Pakistan में ही?
No, Pakistan, I was not interested in podcasts. So I left Pakistan when I was like 19.
Mm.
When I left Pakistan, I had recently broken up with my longtime girlfriend. तो उस वक्त सिर्फ हिमेश चल रहा था और
गम आवर. अच्छा वो गम आवर डेज थे.
हिमेश चल रहा था
Right.
और And you're young, you're like, no, it's all right, I have to be strong. No shit, bitch, of course you have to. What are you talking about? Of course you have to be strong.
Acha. Okay.
Right, so anyways, so I went to Malaysia. Malaysia I started picking it up, and I got into it. What's interesting is I was actually very much into Muay Thai, kickboxing.
Okay.
And from kickboxing, you obviously then start watching UFC, because UFC is the
Acha, acha,
premier fight
acha.
organization,
I see where this is
right?
going. Huh.
And that's where I heard of Joe Rogan, and I'm like, this guy, he knows a lot about fighting. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, he has a podcast.
Yeah.
By the way, he has 5 million followers on the podcast. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
let's go check it out. And then one thing led to another.
Acha. Okay. So
Yeah.
this is interesting to me that acha, you're away from Pakistan for a while. I mean, I'm sure बीच बीच में visit किया
Yeah.
होगा तुमने.
No.
But बिल्कुल भी नहीं किया. Like Malaysia,
No.
Canada के time पे, you were just there.
One I had to come back because of there was some problem in the family.
Okay.
Problem nahi tha, alhamdulillah, shadi thi.
Okay. Oftentimes that is a problem.
Which I mean, take it or leave it. And what do you want me to say, right? But which was like barely a week. But
Okay.
yeah, in 8 years, a week.
Okay. How old are you now? I'm interested in asking that personal question.
Yeah, matlab, I am.
I mean, if you tell me you're 25, 26, I'll be like, all right, lag raha hai, theek hai. But now you're saying you left when you were 19 or 8 saal baad tum wapas aaye. So I'm like, that doesn't.
I'm 28. I'm 28, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually the people I've been talking to in the course of this podcast, they've been shockingly young. They've been early to mid 20s, and I'm like, शायद थोड़ा late start किया मैंने. But चलो कोई नहीं. Khair, so you come back from Canada. So now that's an interesting that you haven't been back to Pakistan. What was this is perhaps not directly related, perhaps it is, but 8 साल बाद जब तुम आए वापस Pakistan, what differences did you note in the country and society that perhaps they were contrary to what you had left, or perhaps you just didn't notice them before because also you were 19, or most of people don't pay as much attention perhaps to these things. But बाकी बाहर की दुनिया देखने के बाद इतने अरसे, Malaysia, an Asian place, chalo, still not as different from us, but much more you would consider civilized or developed perhaps in some metrics, and then Canada is काफी foreign, and then you come back to Pakistan. What did you notice was different about Pakistan in that period?
Yeah, when I came back now, I felt there was a severe lack of drive. Like for you to do anything, there needs to be fire, right? There needs to be like you need to be impatient, even if it's patiently impatient. Even if you're like, all right, I'm gonna calm down, but I need to be going somewhere. I came back and there was just apathy. People were just like, meh. Like, but matlab ye hame halat change karne hai na? No, it's fine. But why is it fine? Who decided it was fine? Well, the bureaucracy blames the government, and the government blames the bureaucracy, and some people want to blame the security forces. Everyone wants to blame everyone, but no one's doing anything. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even going to begin to speak about people who are disenfranchised, people who are who have limited or lower means, but like upper class people, right? People who live in DHA and so on and so forth. It's just there was apathy. Like, this is all right. Like, they were like, my sister put it beautifully because she came with me. We seem so willing and so desperate to thrive in our mediocrity. Do you know what I mean? Like, people make lots of fun of people when they're like, oh, positive image portray karna Pakistan ka and all those things, right? But it's a very insidious thing, because it kind of it kind of anchors itself, this thought anchors itself in your mind, right? Where you're like, देखो पाकिस्तान में कितना पोटेंशियल है, तो भाई हम पिछले 50 साल से यही बोल रहे हैं ना, पोटेंशियल है. Why was it never actualized? Because when you're saying potential, intrinsically that must have been a young person.
Yeah.
Did they not grow up? And if
Yeah.
they grew up, where'd they go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so, and that's like a very crude, specific example. Like, मैं एक बात बोल रहा हूँ, we're so willing to just thrive in our own mediocrity. We're just like, ठीक है, ये भी सही
गुजर
है.
रही है जिंदगी.
हाँ. And then, you want to copy and you want to cut down, and in the context of YouTube even, like so many people said such horrible things about Irfan bhai. Based off what? Dude, make your own shit. You could be him too. But you don't have to be Irfan Junejo. You can be you, dude. You could be whoever you are. You could be Mubashir or Alina. You could be whoever you want to be. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be him. But you don't have to क्या बोलते हैं उसको, hamstring him. Or you don't have to take him out at the knees. It's just, he's a person. He worked hard. What do you want him to say? Yeah, I'm sorry, I worked hard and I'm better at this than you are. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I felt, and I know I'm sounding overly critical, but wahan pe when I would meet people who had left Pakistan ages ago, like 30-40 years ago, they'd left Pakistan for whatever reasons. तो उनसे मैं जब बात करता था, तो they'd always be like, यार, Pakistan याद आता है. I'm like, and they would and I'm talking about a person who, he's living in a big house there, 3-4 गाड़ियों का garage है, good life, alhamdulillah. And I'm like, क्या मतलब है आपको? He's like, यार, वहां पे ना, everyone knew everyone would talk to everyone, neighbors and stuff. I'm like, with respect, Uncle Ji, that Pakistan's gone.
Yeah.
That's not this place anymore. You know what I mean? So I don't even see that right now. To some degree, even that's gone.
And then when you come back with, and you have these realizations, and you've spent the life that you spent in Malaysia and Canada, how does that flow into the podcast wala idea? Because I'm assuming they're linked.
Yes, all of it is, yes, absolutely. The problem, or the solution, to me at least, it was very apparent that the solution was always going to be conversations. We, you, me, everyone else who's trying to do a podcast, they need to understand what this medium actually is, what it represents. It is the oldest gelling agent, in societal gelling agent, that's existed in our history. It's conversations, and we need to learn to have conversations again, right? Because how quickly do we cancel people? Do we decide to kill people? हर कोई वाज पे कत्ल है, हर किसी को मार दो, हर किसी को कैंसिल कर दो, हर किसी को खत्म कर दो. Did we not learn anything from all the enlightenment, from all the education, from everything that we've been taught? हमें ये नहीं सीखा कि भाई नहीं, गुफ्तगू करो ना, बात करो ना, उसका जाविया, उसका नुक्ता नजर देखो तो सही ना, वो क्या बोल रहा है. No, just cancel this guy. Ali bhai and I disagree on one thing. I'm just not going to talk to him. The fuck? You know what I mean? So the podcasting is basically, inshallah, my attempt at just making conversations cool again, right? Okay. Being like, okay, listen, it's always better to just sit down and have a conversation, right? It might not look like, it might not always look pretty, right? It might not always be good, like, because some of the guests I've been lucky enough to have, they're just so articulate, right? But I'm not, right? So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have a well-developed oratory, or if you have all these languages, all these words that you can use. talking is important, communicating is important, right? So yeah, that was it कि भाई गुफ्तगू करना चाहिए.
Hmm.
और
And how has things? You've got some 20 odd episodes so far.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I missed this
alhamdulillah.
part from the previous interview that you did. But is this something that you're doing like full time, 100%? You're not working a 9 to 5, आजकल?
आजकल I'm not working a 9 to 5. This is what I'm doing.
Okay.
This is what I'm doing. और अभी वो रुक इसलिए गया है थोड़े अरसे से because I've been sick.
Okay. Have you been
Yeah. So
sick or have you just been casual bimari? Because आजकल
नहीं 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 डेंगू है बकायदा.
oh bro, wow. Okay, shit.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
hardcore, bro. Are
Yeah,
you
yeah. I'm super hardcore.
um
अल्लाह रहम करे
are
तो
you
बस तक सर.
कितना time हो गया मतलब are you getting better or is it
Yeah, no,
new?
Alhamdulillah, I'm a lot better. You just like, I just control the fever.
Hmm.
So you just take 2 Panadols every 4 to 6 hours, and you
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Okay.
Allah
Okay.
Rahm karega.
Chalo,
Yeah,
that's great. That's great.
yeah.
अच्छा तो इसलिए रुका हुआ है. So you've got so that's you're doing this full time. I was interested in now this is sort of also stemming from the conversation we had with the Toronto boys yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
where they were sort of asking, where do you want the podcast to go? Do you see yourself becoming the next Joe Rogan or the Ringer or ye or wo? Now, and this was something that I'd been thinking of, I think, for much of this year. So it's something I want to ask you as well. Your वो वाली बात तो makes sense कि you want to have conversations and you think conversations are important to overcome the perhaps impasses that Pakistan keeps finding itself in. But is there an overarching, like, beyond that? Is there like a distant horizon wala goal that you see this podcast become? Like, is there? What do you hope this podcast will achieve? I guess is the question.
So this is now this is, you can laugh at me, right?
Hmm.
People do. It's all right? Um, my hope, and this I will cling to with every ounce of strength that I have.
Hmm.
My hope would always be, inshallah. लाहौर में एक औरत मार्च हुई थी, आपको याद है, right? And
Yeah.
there's this brilliant photograph, right, of the औरत मार्च हुई थी और उसके साथ आपको याद है गैरत मार्च हुई थी,
Hmm.
right? The Maulanas on one side, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the women on this side, and then the women, they were like serene, right, just holding their placards, and the Maulanas were being stopped by police, beach mein police thi, and then the Maulanas were really upset, very very
Outraged.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, outraged, visceral emotions, just hurling insults and throwing things, hurling
Hmm.
actual things, right? um, so my hope would be that one day I could get someone from the Bharat March, right? And then someone from uh, the
Gharat.
Ghairat March, and I
Acha.
could get them in the same room.
Hmm.
And then I could get them in the same room, and I could be like, listen, just have a conversation, and then I could maybe somehow make them reason with each
Okay.
other,
Okay. So,
right? Like really, how yeah.
continue.
Yeah, and so I'm just saying, like all I want to impress upon people is how different do you think we really are? Like really, how different am I to you just because I'm Sindhi and you're not, or just because I'm Sunni and you're not? And देखो, I think we need to do away with erroneous arguments, ad hominem attacks like, हाँ तो देखो सिंधियों ने क्या किया है,
Hmm.
और दूसरा सिंधी बोलेगा हाँ देखो महाजरों ने क्या किया है. यार देखो, I'm nobody. मेरी औकात नहीं है. I am not in any position to deny these histories of violence. They need to be appreciated, but we cannot hijack them to bolster our narratives.
Hmm.
They belong to the people who suffered them. I've not suffered them, alhamdulillah, right? How am I going to hijack them and be like, मुहाजिरों ने ये सब किया है? जिनने किया है वो उनसे बात करें ना फिर. I can only mention it as a thing कि हाँ MQM ने ये किया था, उससे पहले ANP ने ये किया था, उससे पहले PPP या उसके बाद PPP ने ये किया था. But I like, you know, like the depth of it, the detail of it, I can't hijack that narrative. We shouldn't take liberties like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's more or less where I would like to go with it. I don't know if that's not really
Yeah.
an answer.
I'm not, yeah, it's not as neatly packaged as perhaps I would have liked, but it seems that the maksad appears to be bridging divides, because you think the divides are more perceived than real, perhaps. And by bridging those, we
Mm,
perhaps as a society could progress.
I think so. I think so, Ali bhai. लेकिन इसमें भी ना just the caveat that I'm also just inviting everyone to be hypercritical, right?
Okay.
Of everything, of whatever you're doing, right? Like for instance, even if you're on the other side and you're sitting there and you're watching someone, or you're looking at something on your phone, and they're telling you, "Oh, mera jism meri marzi" means such and such, right? I would just hope that you would engage with that critically, that you
Mm,
wouldn't just consume it wholesale,
right.
right?
Like you
Just
would
stuff like that.
think
Yeah.
about. So that again ties back into both the things that you mentioned before. कि ये नाम क्या कहेगा काजी कहाँ से आया, and also what you studied in your philosophy or वगैरह के courses. कि everything needs to be examined critically. Okay, so now was this a goal that you had podcast शुरू करने से पहले से ही, या is that something that you've come to realize as things have continued?
To Ali bhai, you know this. We already spoke about this. I've mulled over the podcast for 3 odd years.
Yep.
तो ये goal तो था.
अच्छा,
Somewhere
अच्छा. Okay.
along those 3 years, I was just like, yeah, all this miscommunication and all this fighting and antagonism. Like the podcast should add something positive. Like here's what I didn't just want a podcast where I crack jokes and talk shit. Like I want to do that a lot,
Mm,
right? A lot. I want to do that like 80% of the times or whatever, right? But there needs to be something more. It
right.
can't just be like, oh, uh, shit, bitch, and then we just go off our, that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Do you think that doesn't make sense? That's interesting that you say that. Do you think that doesn't make sense because Pakistan ke halat are perhaps हमारी society के हालात और सोच वगैरह is too serious at this moment? Like मसले are too serious to just spend time in ये हंसी मजाक?
Well, Ali bhai, देखो ना, एक तो ये है कि I think comedy is a brilliant apparatus to engage with serious subject matter. So
Mm,
there's absolutely place for comedy everywhere, right?
mm,
I think for me personally, comedy has been extremely cathartic, and it's been something that I use to engage with difficult subject matter in my personal life as well. लेकिन ये है कि it should not be senseless and mindless comedy. You know what I mean?
okay.
That
Okay.
there's no art to it, there's no tact to it, and a lot of it, aap dekhoge, it's literally just people sitting around. um, for instance, if there's a group of 5 people, they go into a restaurant. अब वो 5 लोग बैठे हुए हैं, किसी एक बंदे की बारी आई हुई है, उस एक बंदे की सब जो है, जो बोलते हैं स्लैंग में, मार रहे हैं,
Mm,
right? That's not the kind of comedy that, you know what I mean, like that's
right.
not comic in that intelligent sense, to me at least. तो
Right.
मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि बिल्कुल हंसी मजाक हो, और इतना ज्यादा हो कि मतलब हर कोई हंसे, लेकिन साथ साथ में it like you said, it is काफी मतलब एक सीरियस सूरत हाल है ना, यहाँ पे थोड़ी नाजुक है ना.
नाजुक है,
तो उसको, हाँ,
हाँ.
तो
No,
उसको
this
जो है.
is part of the reason of me pursuing this line of questioning is
हम्म,
वही वाली बात जो कल जो boys ने पूछा था कि where do we see ourselves. हमारा podcast वाला scene, अब मैं I'm using this Kazi Akber interview to talk about myself. हमारा
yeah, absolutely.
हमारा scene has evolved over time. Um, initially when we started out, to be honest, I started out because जब मैं इधर आया था 2016 में, तब I had
Mm.
discovered podcast, क्योंकि उससे पहले मैं UAE में था, पाकिस्तान में था. पाकिस्तान तो चलो 2010 में छोड़ दिया मैंने. UAE में भी there was no Spotify, so I mean I would spend a lot of time on the internet reading, and people would mention podcast this, podcast that, but I didn't have the access to it. ना मैंने इतना pursue किया कि मैं उस बंदे की वेबसाइट पे जाऊं और डाउनलोड करूं, because I wasn't invested. बट यहाँ आके जब Spotify आया, which I got because I'm into music, तो उसमें podcast भी थे. तो that was sort of like a gateway to it, and I had left my friends Rizwan and Sarkhail back in the UAE, and I figured there were quite a few things. There was the Fasi Zaka wala podcast, How to Pakistan, Fasi Zaka and Musharraf Zaidi. I was listening to that, ironically on SoundCloud, so Spotify wali puri example zaya ho gayi. But I was like, yeah, this is fun. Fasi Zaka, I'm a fan of his back from the On the Fringe days. I like his humor, and काम की बात भी कर देते हैं वो, knowledge भी आ जाती है through हंसी मजाक. And उसी वक्त I was like, यार boys से hang out नहीं हो सकता. So I was like, oh, maybe we could just hang out. And then उस वक्त also the wave came के Patari also launched in that time, and some of the people we knew were working there, and they had a podcast section. And so I was like, oh, this is quite a few things coming together. So initially when we started the podcast, the positioning and packaging was just us hanging out. मैं रिजवान और सरखेल and just joking about stuff, आपस में क्या किया भी वो, like a vlog kind of podcast कि तुमने क्या किया मैंने क्या
Sure.
किया, उस तरह की
Sure.
बातें.
Yeah. Yeah.
It started to change when जब हमारा थोड़ा momentum बढ़ा and people started interacting with us, because this was a very new medium for people
Yes.
um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
at the time in 2016-17. तो हमने कहा कि if you guys have any stories, send us to, and we'll talk about your stories. And हमारा ना थोड़ा, I now looking back I see कि we're all varying degrees, but we're all like from like liberal educated sort of backgrounds, all three of
जी.
us. And
जी.
having lived in
माशाल्लाह.
Pakistan and the UAE for as long as we did, that has informed the way we see the world a lot.
Yes.
So none of us are like extremely religious conservative types, and none of us have very strong opinions against equality or इस तरह की scene. Just because, not because हम कोई बहुत amazing लोग हैं, but that's just because that wasn't the environment that we grew up in.
Sure.
And I started to realize, and I realize now that when we would talk about those stories that people would send us, वो बेचारे लोग हमें स्टोरियां भेजते थे कि मेरे साथ ये हो गया, मेरे साथ वो हो गया, और हम सिर्फ उनका मजाक उड़ाते थे. Like people would send us stories and we would make fun of those stories and those people. But in all of those, our opinions came through. Like, Pakistan ke halat are serious, and we would always, even now we joke about, army ke bare mein agar kisi ne koi baat kar di ya police ke bare mein, immediately हम एक caveat add कर देते हैं कि नहीं नहीं नहीं, we love Pakistan Army और पाकिस्तान की पुलिस तो बहुत
Yeah.
है और सब कुछ है.
Yeah.
The humor sort of I think we hope passes the point across that things are serious and that this is a joke. Aista aista that ebbed and flowed, and stories आना कम हो गई. Patari had a major implosion. हमारा काफी दिल खराब हो गया, हमने podcast बनाने छोड़ दिए for a long time, and then we started again I think last year at some point, I think 19 में ऐसा कुछ, and then now we're on YouTube. One of the
Alright,
things
wow, mashallah.
that we started to do, Irfan ji ne jo humne scout kar liya ittifaqan, just because he was interested in the same stuff, and that gave us a bit of validity, validation, whatever, in the eyes of the masses. But I have come to a conclusion now that I think I sort of understand 4 saal ke baad where I want this podcast to sort of go and what this podcast should do. I don't know, but the end goal तो मैंने boys से कह दिया था, मुझे ये नहीं पता कि I'm not going to say कि I want to be on TV और मेरा एक रोज रात के 9 बजे एक शो आए उस पे हम 3 boys बैठे हों and लोग the world over they watch us and shit like that.
You just talk shit. You just shit on all your callers.
सबकी लेंगे हम. But then we started doing more interviews and इस साल, especially on YouTube. and that sort of informed us of the direction where this would go. हमने बड़े अरसे पहले सोच लिया था. I don't know if you have this sort of thing at all, which I'm sure I'd like you to tell me. But we're not going to talk about politics. Like, that's not going to be the subject of an episode. We're not going to talk about religious issues and controversies. Not because हमें पता नहीं है इसके बारे में, or we don't have opinions, but because ये पाकिस्तान में ना, one thing I remember that has changed from my life, मेरा बचपन to now. Early 2000s, maybe when I moved back to Pakistan from Dubai and I was growing up there, 2000, say 2006, 7, 8, there was a lot of art and culture type baatein. Karachi especially. There was a lot of music. I grew up in Karachi. I'm sure दूसरे शहरों में भी होगा. There was a lot of theater. There was like मुशर्रफ time था. Democracy की खैर है. But channels हमारे आ गए थे, so that had like this side effect. People were into it, and that all has gone away. And that is the Pakistan you mentioned that there were these people in Canada that you met who were like, "Hame Pakistan yaad aata hai." So that's the Pakistan that I miss. Pakistan, where there's like a lot of bands, there's a lot of music, there's like theater. I'm going to the second floor, har mahine open mic night ho rahi hai. I'm meeting new people there. That's all gone.
Yeah.
And
that's gone.
I think that now that we have this platform-ish, we as in hum boys jo hain, I'm going to not hamari aapas mein hangouts hote rahenge, but the interviews we do will be about people we think are doing interesting things, and those things should be more popular, like music, writing, photography, travel, technology, climate change. There's a lot of stuff beyond politics. क्योंकि हमारा मीडिया, हमारा नेशनल डिस्कोर्स, इट्स ऑल पॉलिटिक्स. हमारा टीवी चैनल्स गेट मोर व्यूज देन द चैनल्स इन पर ड्रामे आते हैं. ड्रामों में हर किसी की शादी टूट रही है, और टीवी चैनल्स पे पॉलिटिशियंस जो हैं उनके पट्टे चल रहे हैं. दैट्स इट. देयर इज नथिंग हैपनिंग. दैट्स इट. नो वन लर्न्स एनीथिंग. देयर इज नो गेन. और जहां से बात शुरू हुई थी वहीं खत्म हो जाती है. देयर इज 5 पीपल on the current affairs shows. There's 5 people there, और एक होस्ट, और एक बंदा एक बात करता है, फिर दूसरा वहां से चीखता है, फिर 3 लोग एक साथ चीखते हैं. सो नो वन्स लिसनिंग बिकॉज़ इट्स टू नॉइजी. नाउ खामोशी होती है तो एक बंदे ने नहीं बोला होता है, तो द होस्ट इज लाइक, आपने सुना लेकिन उन्होंने क्या बात की, वो चीखना शुरू हो गया. Bro, what is the point? Do you I don't know why I'm telling you this. I think I'm telling you
it's upsetting.
I think I didn't illustrate this effectively boys ke saath yesterday, but I don't have any high hopes. This is a difficult medium for Pakistan, and we're not live, we're not in one place, hum Zoom pe hain, it's internet only, वगैरह बहुत मसले हैं. तो I don't have any delusions कि मैं बदल दूंगा दुनिया और पाकिस्तान मेरे पॉडकास्ट की वजह से ना बेहतर हो जाएगा. But
that's not the point.
Yeah, but if there is an alternative that you can give people, I think that is worth pursuing.
Absolutely, yes, 100%. And Ali bhai, you're not meant to change a society, a city, definitely not a country. You're just meant to do your little bit, right? बड़ी खतरनाक, she was the best violinist, or one of the best violinists in the world, and वो उन्होंने बड़ा खूबसूरत तरीके से एक बात उन्होंने लिखी थी, अब वो मुझे तो याद नहीं होगी, लेकिन it was to the effect of, yours is not to question what people say about your work. Yours is not even to think about what your work might become or how it might end up. It's simply to do your work, right? So if you identify that this is your work, then that's a beautiful thing, and that is the power of purpose. And there are not a lot of things stronger than the power of purpose, right? So you just go forward and you just do your things. You talk to your people. Your people नहीं, मतलब you talk to people. Your people, ये क्या बोला इसने? क्या बोला?
तुम लोग आपस में बातें करो.
ये जो होते हैं ना, आप लोग जो होते हैं ना, Kazi's gone. चला गया.
Yeah.
लेकिन ये है कि you just talk to guests and just I think there's nothing. I think it's a very positive thing that you're saying. And as far as the art scene, um, like have you ever heard the word herath?
Is it?
Yeah, it's like it's old Gaelic, I think, and
Yeah.
it's supposed to, है ना?
I think it seems very familiar.
So it's basically the nostalgia for a home that never was
Oh yeah,
or
yeah,
no
yeah.
longer or no longer exists,
Or
right?
no longer
Isn't
exists.
that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
isn't that like every Karachiite's dilemma right now, or like
yeah. At least definitely the dilemma for every Pakistani who has left Pakistan a while ago. Um,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
because
It just
I
got worse.
yeah, I mean every decade Pakistan ka has on a quantifiable basis. Every decade has somehow been worse than the past as a whole. There might have been years बीच में कि हाँ जी ये 3 साल इस decade के बहुत अच्छे थे, but फिर उसके
हाँ
बाद the decline
हाँ
that followed was even greater. Yeah,
हाँ सही ऐसे ही है. तो yeah.
I feel, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm talking to you about this because of all you said, because I
Mhm.
agree with the things, that you mentioned. Ki har cheez needs to be critically analyzed and explained, because that's how my mind works also. Like abstract, like
Yeah.
I remember when I used to be city school, debates वगैरह होते थे, regional debates होते थे सालाना when I
Yes.
was in A levels.
हाँ.
And the one year I participated, बहुत अच्छा हुआ, we won, सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा गया. And something this
Yeah.
person noticed about me, the parliamentary debates वाले scene में ना हमारी team होती थी of 5 people. 3 people would speak एक एक करके, एक बंदा आपका, फिर एक बंदा उनका, फिर एक बंदा आपका, and there were 2 people who would write, who would like note down the points, counterpoints, ये वो. So I was one of those people. And topic मिला जी कि ये करें, रॉयल रोडेल पे हुआ था फाइनलिस्ट का. तो आई वाज लाइक हम कर रहे थे एंड समवन गिव मी टॉपिक. अच्छा सो लाइक ये टॉपिक है एंड नाउ वी आर ऑल सिटिंग एंड आई एम लाइक ऑलराइट, let's break it down first, because that's the only way my mind can work. And that's this girl, I think her name was Saba, perhaps. She was from Daraksha, and she
Mhm.
was like, Acha, so that's how your mind works. Like everything has to be logically start to finish, A to B, as much as you can fill it out. कि ये है hypothesis, or this is the thesis statement,
हाँ.
steps, and this is how we conclude कि ये बात थी या नहीं थी.
ऐसे ही है.
Yeah, so that's, I'm unable to just say कि हाँ okay ठीक है तुमने बात कह दी तो मैंने मान ली. It has to
Mhm.
consciously, subconsciously make sense in my mind. One thing I wanted to ask before we wrap, because we're getting close to the hour, the guests that you have, how do
Mhm.
you, they're very varied. Not all of them are
Yes.
famous in their own right. Some people
No.
most people I've never heard of. Jibran Asad, chalo, I knew. Irfan Junejo, Hamza Ibrahim, everyone knows.
Yeah.
But
Mashallah
you've
से
had a
बात है.
few psychologists, you've had a few actresses, you've had one of the guys who was like, "Achha illustrator hai, pata nahi, main to kabhi nahi suna." I go to his Instagram page, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know this guy." Um, but
माशाल्लाह से.
how do you decide who to speak to?
Bhai, that's a people have asked me that before, and they asked me in the vein कि how like how do you दो चीज है ना, या तो ये पूछते हैं कि आप किस चीज के बारे में बात करना चाहते हो.
Hmm.
That's what guests ask me when I invite them. They're like, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, whatever you want to talk about.
Okay.
And then they start laughing. There's like Arij, who's an old friend, but she's a psychologist now, mashallah say. She's like, what if I want to talk about dogs? I'm like, then we'll talk about dogs. Like, I don't,
Acha.
that's not the point, right?
Okay.
And as far as picking guests, I literally off, it's a gut instinct. Like, I don't, I wish I had like a quantifiable, like standardized test कि अगर आप
Yeah.
ये तीन metric और फिर ये दो कोई बात नहीं आप fail कर दिया, लेकिन ये तीन जो है
Huh.
ये तीन meet कर लेते हैं तो. But it's just like I look them up and I ask around as well. I'm like, how is this person in person? Because being in a 5-minute video clip or a photograph or whatever their profile on Instagram is not the same as.
Yeah.
So obviously, I try and find out about people. I talk to people. If I have mutual friends, I try to do those things. Right. That's
Mm.
all normal. Just, but at the end of the day, it's just like if I feel ke hai, and then also you get rejected. So I got rejected like. So if I have like 24 odd episodes, I've been rejected at least 25 odd times,
Mm.
right? People are just like, oh no. I'm like, all right.
Do you think it's because there's something that some of you smaller, newer podcast people say they also want to get guests, and people aksar don't reply. या वो or consciously या message others में चला गया देखा नहीं या जान के कटा दिया कि ये तो छोटे. Is that because you haven't been around very long, even though your growth has been very impressive? um,
Alhamdulillah.
आज तुम्हारी जो position है that maybe would be enough to not have this problem, but 4 महीने पहले perhaps people would have been like भाई ये कौन है मैं क्यों बात करूं इससे. Do you think that might have been a reason for the rejections, or did people watch your episode and be like, I don't, this is like perhaps too intimate a situation and I don't want to, I'm not comfortable enough filhal?
But it could be a bit of both. And I don't begrudge either,
Okay.
right? It could be a bit of both. If they're not comfortable talking, फिर तो कोई
Yeah.
जबरदस्ती तो हो नहीं सकती ना यहाँ पे.
Huh.
So I think it's a bit of both. Also, my position today is मतलब ठीक है. Alhamdulillah, I have more than I had 2 or 3 months ago. But as far as people rejecting me, वो वैसा ही है. वो मसला नहीं है. हमने बोला ये मसला है आपको लग रहा है नहीं है मसला ये.
Right.
तो
Right.
जो है वो but it's not. I'm not saying it's comfortable. Obviously it's biting, it hurts, and it's it feels like it's frustrating and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like दूसरे बंदे का वजूद है ना. वो कोई चीज नहीं आपको दे रहा है, वो अपना वक्त दे रहा है आपको, अपनी persona, अपना वजूद दे रहा है, so you have to be mindful and respectful of that, and I try to be, right? And I don't जैसे एक आध नहीं दो थी. एक होता है दो होता एक आध दो खवातीन थी अलग, they're not related to each other. तो उनसे मैंने एक बार मैसेज किया. They were like, we sure, we could do it, right? And I'm like, all right, let's set it up sometime. They're like, all right. Second time I message them, they don't respond. Right? Now I have an option in front of me, right? I could message them again, remind them कि भाई देखो आपने बोला था, मैं सिर्फ तभी आपको मैसेज कर रहा हूँ. Or I could just be like, ठीक है, if they don't want to,
Yeah.
right? But either way, I think not taking it personally is key, because a lot of these people, if they're famous on Instagram, if they're big on Instagram, they make money off that fame. They make money off that clout. No? You're asking them to give it to you for free.
Yeah. But
also,
something that people, well, I think as the podcast medium in Pakistan hopefully grows, and people understand the significance, it's very different. Like, थोड़ा सा time बढ़ा दो ना तुम conversation का weight dramatically change. Like a 5-minute conversation is very different from 10, 15, 20, 30, 1 hour. Like a half-hour conversation or 1 घंटे की conversation जो है ना, ज़मीन आसमान का फर्क है. After an hour, perhaps, sort of diminishing returns हो जाते हैं कि 1 घंटा or, but like Joe does like 3 घंटे के podcasts.
3 घंटे, yeah, regularly.
And people go through the whole thing and their stuff and their stuff and their stuff. But like आधे घंटे की conversation और 1 घंटे की conversation में ज़मीन आसमान का फर्क है in how much can be talked about, how 15 मिनट तो बंदे को comfortable होने में लग जाते हैं कि,
Absolutely, yes, yes.
So as the medium grows, I think people will come around. Like उनको ये cloud path will be less of a barrier, क्योंकि उनको भी समझ आएगी, कि ये इसका what is the मकसद of this situation, hopefully one can hope.
Sure, yeah, of course, yeah.
Are there things, as we wrap up, अब मैं जरा शोशा छोड़ता हूँ for something that I've spoken to you about and you'll understand when I ask the question. Pakistan में, where how have you seen the podcast on YouTube, off YouTube scene? How have you seen that change in the time that you've been doing it, and where do you think this needs to go in the future for it to become like a self-sustaining thing, both in terms of where does the audience need to go and where do people who are thinking of making podcasts need to go, in your view, in the near foreseeable future, 2-3 saal?
In the near future. So one, audiences obviously need to understand that this is not like a chutki bajaye or information mil gayi. So you're going to have to be patient,
Yeah.
right? The creators, they need to understand that this is not something they can make money off of immediately, right? Brands won't sponsor this
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
You won't get subscribers immediately. If those are the things you want to do on YouTube, you'd be much better off doing some pop cultural stuff, which I'm not opposed to. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
But maybe try vlogging. But again, people like Hamza Ibrahim, Irfan Junejo, Muru Bhai, they've destroyed that scene because they've done it so well.
Yeah.
चलो फिर पहुंच जाना वहां तक.
Huh.
लेकिन but like you could do some of that. Um, this is not going to make money instantly, but regardless, it is something. If you're going to do it, you need to uh, do it with the intention कि इसमें clickbait नहीं होगी, इसमें ये सब nonsense नहीं होगी. That's it, I think.
That was something I missed out on asking you. Is there stuff that you would not consider doing, like bringing on the show? Like, are there things that you think the show should not do? Your show.
Nothing comes off the top of my head. No, and I'll tell you why. This again is something that I would hope to eventually establish. I would hope that I could build, or I could build enough trust in whoever listens to me. कि they should have that kind of faith in me. कि आगे जिस भी बंदे को मैं बुला रहा हूँ, कि अगर काजी ने बुलाया है ना, so he must have thought something. Something must have occurred to him, and that's why he's called this person onto the show.
Yeah.
Like there were a few people who were like, don't call such and such, right? इनको नहीं, they're big. Entities to nahi bolunga, they're people. They're big people on YouTube and stuff, right? But they're like, don't call these people. You're going to alienate everyone else. I'm like, yeah, but my hope would always be the people who listen to me would have that kind of trust in me as well, inshallah. So yeah.
Okay, I think that's a good place, a good hopeful place to end
inshallah
this conversation. At least the recorded part of it. फिर हम देखते हैं. अक्सर what I've noticed is मेरे जो podcast होते हैं ना, हमें लगा अच्छा जी खुदा हाफिज़ और recording खत्म, 1 घंटे के बाद 45 मिनट और इसके बाद just बातें हो रही हैं and stuff that is mostly unpublishable. तो अच्छा ही है. चले, but thanks very much, Kazi. I think it was a great chat, and I think I hope that this is the start of a meaningful relationship going on into the future, because I see in some ways I see a sort of like kindred spirit in what you're trying to do and what I've been trying to do for a while. ठीक है जी. Thank you very much for coming. I'm at the Monologue on Twitter. Rizwan and Sarkhail aren't here. Kazi, are you active on Twitter? Would you like to be?
I am. No, I'm all right.
ठीक है. क्या कहेगा काजी, Kazi Akber, Instagram, YouTube. Chances are you already know who he is. TPR Pod is our group account. ठीक है जी. खुदा हाफिज़. सिकंदर का मंदिर. I'm going to stop recording here.
Thank you. All right.